There's a verse in Matthew that says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And yet, some of the people leading millions of Christians in worship every Sunday are quietly building eight-figure empires, private jets, multi-million-dollar homes in gated communities, investment portfolios that would make Wall Street executives jealous. And here's the thing. They're not doing it through some side business or inheritance. They're doing it through worship music. The same songs you sing in church on Sunday morning are generating passive income streams that would shock most of the congregation singing them. So how did we get here? How did leading people in worship become one of the most lucrative careers in American Christianity? And why is almost no one talking about it? To understand what's happening, you have to understand how worship music actually works as a business. Because that's what it is now. A business, a very profitable one. Every time a worship song gets played in a church service, royalties get generated. Every time that song streams on Spotify or Apple Music, more royalties. Every time it's used in a YouTube video or a conference or a broadcast on Christian radio, the checks keep coming. And these aren't small checks. We're talking about songs that get sung in tens of thousands of churches every single week across America alone. Now multiply that by churches in Europe, Australia, South America, Africa. A single popular worship song can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And the most successful worship leaders? They've written dozens of these songs. Chris Tomlin, yet widely considered the most successful worship leader in modern history, has written songs that are sung by an estimated 20 to 30 million people every week. His net worth has been estimated at over $100 million. He owns multiple properties, including a historic mansion in Tennessee that sold for millions when he upgraded. And Chris Tomlin isn't hiding in the shadows. He is actually one of the more transparent figures in this space. The question isn't about him specifically. The question is about the system that makes this possible, while most churchgoers have absolutely no idea. But the individual songwriters are just the beginning. The real money flows through the organizations. Hillsong, the Australian megachurch turned global worship empire, built a media and music operation that generates tens of millions annually. Their worship albums have gone gold and platinum. Their songs dominate Christian radio, and their business model has been replicated by churches across America. Bethel Music, out of Redding, California, operates as a full commercial music label. They produce albums, manage artists, book tours, sell merchandise, and license their catalog. Elevation Worship, connected to Stephen Furtick's Elevation Church in Charlotte, has followed the same playbook. And here's where it gets complicated. These worship operations are often structured as separate business entities from the churches themselves. That means they can operate with the same profit motivations as any secular record label, while still benefiting from the spiritual credibility of being connected to a church. When you buy an Elevation Worship album, you're not donating to a church. You're purchasing a commercial product. The profits don't necessarily go back into ministry. They go to the business entity, which then distributes them according to its own internal structure. How much goes to the songwriters? How much goes to executives? How much, if any, goes back to the church or charitable causes? Most of these organizations don't disclose that information. Now, some defenders will argue that there's nothing wrong with artists being compensated for their work. And they're right. Musicians deserve to be paid. Skilled worship leaders have genuine talent. Writing songs that resonate with millions of people isn't easy. But here's where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. The message of worship music is surrender, humility, laying down your life for something greater than yourself. In song after song talks about giving everything to God, about earthly treasures meaning nothing, about finding identity in Christ rather than material possessions. And then the people writing and performing these songs go home to gated estates, drive luxury vehicles, and build personal brands worth millions. Consider what happened with Hillsong's leadership. When founder Brian Houston faced allegations of covering up his father's child abuse and was later charged with concealing a serious indictable offense, the organization's financial structures came under intense scrutiny. Reports emerged about leadership living lavish lifestyles, while some church staff were reportedly underpaid. Properties, cars, clothing budgets, all while the songs being sung talked about serving others and putting God first. It's not that wealth is inherently sinful. Plenty of theologians would argue there's nothing wrong with prosperity. But there's something about the specific industry of worship music that creates a unique tension. These aren't executives selling software or entertainers selling concert tickets. They're spiritual leaders who have built careers on the message of selflessness. And the average person in the pew has no idea how much money is actually moving through these operations. Here's a number that might surprise you. CCLI, the organization that licenses songs for church use, processes millions of dollars in royalties every year distributed to songwriters based on how often their songs are reported being sung in churches. The top worship songwriters can receive six-figure annual checks just from church usage alone. That's before streaming, before album sales, before touring, and before merchandise, before book deals, before speaking fees. And those speaking fees? The Christian conference circuit is its own multi-million-dollar industry. Popular worship leaders can command tens of thousands of dollars for a single appearance. Add in VIP meet and greets, exclusive worship experiences, and premium conference packages, and you start to see how the economics work. The worship leader who wrote that song about God being all you need, they might be charging $50,000 to sing it at your church's annual conference. Again, some would argue this is just the free market at work. Supply and demand. If churches are willing to pay, why shouldn't worship leaders accept? They have families to feed, mortgages to pay, kids to put through college. But here's what troubles so many believers when they learn about this system. The money is often invisible. Churches don't typically announce that they paid $30,000 to bring in a worship leader for their annual event. They don't explain that part of their tithes goes to CCLI licensing fees that ultimately end up in millionaire songwriters' bank accounts. The whole financial structure operates in the background, while the message from the stage remains consistently focused on generosity, sacrifice, and putting God first. And when questions do get raised, the response is often deflection. In recent years, several worship organizations have faced public pressure to be more transparent about their finances. Some have responded with vague statements about stewardship and accountability. Very few have actually opened their books. The tax structures make this even more complicated. Many worship music operations are connected to nonprofit churches, which means certain tax advantages apply. But the line between nonprofit church activity and for-profit music business can get blurry. Where does ministry end and commerce begin? Now, to be clear, there are worship leaders operating with integrity. There are songwriters who donate significant portions of their royalties to charitable causes. There are churches that have built worship operations with genuine accountability structures in place. This isn't about condemning everyone in Christian music, but the system itself has created incentives that can easily corrupt the original mission. When writing a hit worship song can make you a millionaire, when building a worship brand can launch a media empire, when the path to influence in the church runs through commercial success, Something fundamental has shifted. The early church described in Acts shared everything in common. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own. They sold property and gave to anyone who had need. Today, some of the leaders of modern worship own multiple properties, while congregation members struggle to pay rent. They fly private while asking followers to give sacrificially. They build personal brands while singing about decreasing so that Christ can increase. The documented facts create an inescapable contradiction, and more Christians are starting to notice. Social media has made it harder to hide the lifestyle gap. When a worship leader posts from their vacation home, or their new luxury car shows up in the background of an Instagram story, even people see it. They compare it to the message being preached, and many of them are asking questions that church leadership would prefer to avoid. What does it mean to lead people in worship while living like a celebrity? What does it mean to sing about surrender while accumulating wealth? What does it mean to serve as a spiritual leader while operating as a commercial brand? These aren't questions with easy answers, and maybe that's the point. Maybe the Christian music industry has become so normalized that most people have stopped asking them at all. But the contradiction remains. Documented in property records, in financial disclosures, in the visible gap between message and lifestyle. The worship playing in churches this Sunday will generate millions of dollars. Most of the people singing along will never know where that money goes. If you found this video eye-opening, hit subscribe. This channel documents what's actually happening in spaces that prefer to operate without scrutiny.